And we're off and running.
Awesome. Okay, and I will share my slides here. Is that one? Yes, share. All right, let me go into full screen mode. All right, can you see this here?
Looks good.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope most of you are staying warm or avoiding the fires out in California. If anybody's out in that way, thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. If you are a small business owner who needs a simple website on a budget, you are in the right place. So let's get into it. Just to give you a quick agenda for the presentation, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about myself and what inspired me to start my business. I actually took advantage of the SCORE mentor back when I first started, and that really helped propel my business as well. So I'll talk a little bit about myself and my business and then dive right into the website basics. So we'll cover things like the true cost of a website and the differences between some common template builder sites. I'll cover GoDaddy, Wix, Squarespace, and WordPress. Again, there are plenty of other options out there, but these are the most common that you've probably heard of also. But regardless, this information should really just give you an idea of what to consider and how to sort of suss out the options so you can find the fit that works best for you. And then I'll show you some case study examples using each of the 4 platforms, and we'll talk about the content pieces you'll need to get together in order to create your own website. I do have a lot of information to share, but I'd love for this to be conversational in tone. As Bill mentioned already, please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A part. I try to keep acronyms to a minimum, but if I've said some marketing jargon, please feel free to interrupt me. We don't need to save the questions to the end. I've got some checkpoints along the way. Okay, so Aducate is a blend of advertising and education. My business was born out of a desire to educate small business owners in advertising strategies. Our mission is to empower the service support industry in digital marketing. I'm an artist that traverses many different fields. My degree is technically in medical illustration, and what that means is that I was formally trained to draw those posters you see in doctors' offices. I've done a lot of museum exhibit design work. I've worked with lawyers to create visuals for the court case, for courtroom, and a lot more. What I really love to do is take complicated information and translate that in fun and engaging ways for diverse audiences. My last official office job was as a digital marketing specialist for a private equity-backed healthcare business. We provided therapy for children on the autism spectrum. So I created the brochures and materials that sort of helped parents and families navigate that journey. But we would also acquire smaller clinic spaces, and it was my job to transition that business owner out of their contracts and into our platforms. So close down their website and get them onto ours, shut down their social media channels and things like that and get them onto our systems. And in that process, I learned that there were 3 types of business owners. The first is the jack of all trade who has had to become an expert in everything. And I'm sure a lot of us on this call probably feel that. You're really great at your service, but maybe because you don't have the formal business education training, there's some business ownership skills that could be improved. The second is the second type of business owner found a freelancer designer, and now they can't get a hold of them anymore, and their website's held hostage, and it's out of date, and the business owner just doesn't have time to care about it anymore, and so their content is really kind of not working for them as best as it could. The third went all in on some marketing agency, and they were spending 15 grand a month, for example. And when I would look over those contracts, I would ask the owner, what did you think reputation management meant? And the owner would say, I never thought to ask. So it just kind of really became clear to me that if these small business owners had a few really key questions to ask the marketing agency, they could have saved a bunch of money, grown faster, or more intentionally, and avoided a lot of mistakes. So I started my business to really bridge that communication and knowledge gap, because marketing shouldn't be confusing or ambiguous. And if you're going to spend money, you really deserve an advisor that's going to explain things. So if it's ever felt like this Abbott and Costello routine, we should fix that. But that's enough about me. So let's really get into the meat of why you're here. If you're here, that means that you've recently started or are thinking of starting a business. You've heard that a website is a key piece of that marketing strategy, but you don't have the money to hire someone yet, or maybe you just want to know more about what's actually needed to get together. Maybe you've done some searching online and you can see that the website costs anywhere from $500 to $25,000, and you really just want to make sense of why there's such that wide gap. If any of those reasons resonate with you, this presentation is for you. So getting into the basics, you're probably familiar with some of these already, but just to kind of get a level set baseline, a website is a really great way to build your credibility as you start with your network. As you start networking and finding leads through word of mouth or your friends and family, the first thing people do is try to find you online. So a website really strengthens your brand because you can provide more information than a business card. You can go in a lot more detail about your services and products, for example. And a website helps interested folks find you a lot easier. So it's just an overall good cost benefit. And especially as a digital business card, you don't have to worry about print costs. You can update a lot faster, things like that. If you have started to do some digging into how much a website costs, you may have found a lot of conflicting information. You might have heard ads from Squarespace that the website only costs $12 a month. So why is it so hard to pin down? So this is really kind of your jargon alert. This is the only technical aspect I'll get into here, but it's important to understand a few key terms. So using a house as an analogy, there are three pieces that go into building a website, and that's the host, the design, and the domain. So the first one is the web host. Template builder sites like Squarespace or Wix or WordPress or any of those kind. They're the house, they're the host. They are storing your files for you. So what you're doing essentially is renting space on their servers, and in return, they display your website for people to see, find. So when you see those $12 a month or whatever the deal is, this is really only referring to the host fee, and this is a subscription that you pay them annually or monthly, but it's a fee that you can't really avoid. You have to pay it. The furniture that you place within your house, those are like the design or data files. This is all the visual or written content that makes up your website. Any pictures you upload, blogs you write, product photos you include, and so on. That's your furniture. So just like individual styles kind of affect how much we spend on furniture in our house. Similarly, that is really what kind of makes that largest variable for your website pricing. Are you making it yourself, doing a DIY approach? Are you paying a freelancer? How many web pages does it need on your website? Do you need custom interactions, things like that? How quickly do you need it done? All of these variables, much like designing your house, is really what determines that expense. So either you're doing it DIY and saving quite a bit of money, or paying a freelancer, and that's what makes that 500 to 25,000 range so high. The third part is the domain, and your domain is like the street address of your house. It's how people find your website when they do a search. So you register this address with an internet registrar for an annual fee. So again, the host and then this domain, those are fees that you can't really avoid. It's a subscription that you're paying for. So individually, the host, the data files, and the domain each have a separate fee. And when you see those ads, it's really only referring to the host bit. So of course, to make things even more confusing, all of these template builder sites are presenting themselves as like a one-stop solution, meaning you can buy your domain, you can design your website, and you can host using this one template solution. And that sounds really great, right? The reality is that something can only really be great at one thing and kind of be okay at other things. So GoDaddy, for example, started as a way to purchase domains, and now it's allowing you to like design your website there as well. So because of this, managing your domain through them is pretty straightforward, but the design templates that they have available, it's a little clunky and not the easiest to use. And then alternatively, Squarespace and Wix, they started out as a place for you to design and host your website. And they recently started allowing you to purchase your domain through there as well. So their templates are really beautiful and easy to work with, and they're great. But they can upsell you on your domain without really offering any additional services. because they can upsell you. So those are just kind of things to keep in mind. WordPress is the option that kind of allows for customization in all three parts, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So this is kind of something to keep in mind. There's definitely nothing wrong with hosting, designing, and purchasing your domain all through one place, but just keep in mind that if that's not really what its primary function is, you might be a little frustrated. This is just to cover my butt here. There are seriously hundreds of template builder sites out there. I tried to make a graphic that showed all of them, but there's just so many options. So the four I'm going to focus on are the most common, but again, they're definitely not the only ones. These are the user-friendly drag and drop options, meaning that you don't need to know how to code to make your website. And also these options come with an e-commerce solution. So in case you need that option. But there's also tons of niche industry specific website builders. Like I know somebody that has a bike shop, and so his platform is on some website builder template that is specific for bike shops. Therapists, a lot of them, healthcare, have a lot of options for website builder templates that offer like scheduling features. But just keep in mind that those specific features are going to increase the price tag. So digging into the differences between the hosts, I'll share the slide, so don't worry about memorizing this. Bill will share it afterwards. But I just want to point out that each host has a different price tag and different tiered options, and they do offer different features. So most offer some sort of free trial. You'll likely need the personal or business tier as you get started, and they're all about $30 a month. Your gut might say to start with the cheapest option, but keep in mind that, again, that might mean it has a more limited customization, and that might be fine for what you need. So that's definitely not a problem. You just kind of want to consider how quickly your business is going to grow. If you start your website on a platform that is too small for you, it doesn't offer a lot of customization, and then your business grows really quickly, you might have to switch platforms, which means building your website all over again. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, WordPress here, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it does allow for the most customization, but it also requires the steepest learning curve. So you'll probably need to hire a developer, and that's, again, what's going to make that cost go up a little bit more. You might not have the budget for that, and it also might just be overkill for where you are if you're just starting out your business. So Wix and Squarespace are kind of like the two middle ground, I feel. They're relatively inexpensive, and they offer a lot of flexibility as you scale. And by that, I mean like the number of pages you can add, or the individualization of the templates in terms of like, gallery blocks or adding YouTube links or things like that. You can start with the personal tier and move up and still have quite a bit of room to grow, which is nice. And you don't really have that option with GoDaddy. They don't have a personal plan. It just kind of jumps you straight to the higher options. And just to kind of recap why that furniture budget is so expensive, it really just kind of comes down to if you're doing it yourself, DIY, or if you're paying a freelancer. If you are paying somebody, or if you are doing it yourself, like how quickly do you need it? Do you want to be trained on how to maintain it yourself? How many pages you'll need? Like, do you want an about page? Do you want individual pages for each service line? Do you need a customized contact form that allows people to upload documents, things like that? Like, how complex will it be? Do you also want to get into SEO? This is really what kind of makes that budget go up quite a bit. For the domain, the costs are usually about $10 to $50 a year. .coms are definitely always the cheapest. When you start getting into the fancy ones like .org, .net, .me, .whatever, those cost a bit more. And again, you can purchase your domain directly through any of these platforms, or you can use a third party and then connect it to the host that you're using. So for example, Squarespace charges you $20 a month, $20 a year, I'm sorry, to manage your domain. Whereas if you were to purchase it through one of these third-party options, you can probably get it for like $13 or so a year. And then connect it to Squarespace. However, if you don't have the technical skills to do that, you might need to pay somebody to do it. So the few bucks that you're saving might not be worth it. It's just kind of like, what is your time worth, I guess is what I'm getting at. It might not be worth focusing on the penny pinching is what I'm getting at. So we're getting to our first recap and checkpoint, because I see a lot of questions coming up here. Just to recap quickly, the three parts are your web host, the data file contents, and the domain. The web host is a subscription fee that you can't avoid. Any of the platforms you use is going to charge a fee, and that's about $250 a year. Your domain is, again, another one of those expenses that you can't get around. You have to register that, and that'll be about $10 to $50 a year. So if you make your website yourself, you can get away with making a website for about $300 a year. If you are paying somebody, that's where that can very quickly balloon out of control. So a simple website is cost effective. It's a digital business card that to help build your credibility. Remember to budget for that domain, because that's always kind of like the last thing that the subscriptions tack on if you want to pay for it through them. Your furniture, again, is going to be the most expensive variable, the thing that changes quite the most. And then save some costs and build a template. Do it yourself with a template builder site. So I see the alert coming up with questions, so why don't we get right into that? See, I can't see where my Zoom thing went away. Here we go. Can you see any questions coming up, Bill?
Yeah, there's quite a few. You want me to try to read them?
Yeah, I can't see them on my end here.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, here we go.
Any thoughts on Kajabi? Which of the three parts are they good at?
Kajabi, I have not heard of them, but if you send me an email, I'm happy to follow up with you there. If not, again, I said there's like hundreds of them, so there's going to be plenty that I'm not familiar with.
I think you already answered this one, but can you ever purchase your website without having a monthly fee, or will the site always own your website and just allow you unlimited access?
Can you ever? You could host your in your own servers, but that takes quite a bit of technical knowledge. And if that's not something that you're strong in already, it might not be worth your time. You will always have some sort of fee associated with the host and the domain for sure.
My company is preparing to launch. How do I find a freelancer to help with programmer that will provide an integral part of the company, creating algorithms to sort through different variables is crucial, and how much should it cost?
Ooh, yeah, that's
a
getting
lot of
into
pieces there.
how to find a freelancer, first question. You can use Upwork or Fiverr. I know those are pretty common ones. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. And if Squarespace, for example, or Wix or GoDaddy would be a good solution, or if you need something more intense like WordPress, which would require a developer. How much it costs, I can't really get specifics because it just is going to be a lot of your personal, what you need specifically. But I can provide some more content if you send me an email after.
I heard that some web hosts hold your content and make it difficult to transition to a different host.
So that's usually associated if you have like a marketing agency or a developer agency that custom coded it entirely. Then that's technically their property. The template builder sites that I'm talking about, you won't have to deal with that. It's very easy to transition your content out of it. It's your content. You're just like renting space on their servers. If that makes sense.
Why is .org more expensive than .com?
It beats me. Yeah, .com is just the most common, so that's why the registrars don't cost as much. The more unique they are, the more expensive they cost. I'm not sure why.
I'm a little confused by the mention of needing a developer if using WordPress. If a layperson uses WordPress.org and buys Elementor or Elementor Pro. It said
Mhm.
online that we wouldn't need to learn coding. What challenges may we run into that would for sure require a developer if we go that
Sure.
route?
Yes, so I actually, my website is on WordPress and I use Elementor Pro. And I needed to pay for a developer to set it up. So the things you might run into is installing the plugins. If that is, stuff that's kind of over your head already, you're gonna run into some problems, and that's nothing, really figure out what's your time worth, where to invest your energy at. If you are much better at, adding blog posts and that kind of content, let somebody else set up your website on WordPress as a template that you can just swap out. Of course, the online wouldn't need to learn to code. It's true to an extent. But yeah, if you're kind of already running into some issues, it's gonna only get harder.
If you aren't quite ready to launch, can you start with a personal site and turn it into a business site?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's the great solution if you're just kind of testing the waters. Absolutely.
Um, how long is this meeting? We're scheduled to go an
Yeah.
hour and a half, so we should be done around 11:30. And we will send out a recording, so if someone has to leave early, they will have the rest of the information. What is your email address?
It's down here. It'll be on the bottom of the slides down here.
Yeah, it'll be with the slides. So, what about using Fiverr?
Yeah, I've never used it. I've heard people, hit or miss. Really kind of depends on who you find. That's the situation where you might not be able to get a hold of them again. Just be judicious in who you are selecting.
Are there SEO negatives from choosing a cheaper hosting site and switching after the first year special runs out to another company offering a cheap price for the first time?
Yeah, so your SEO, we'll get into that a little bit later on. That's usually associated with your domain, and your domain will, if you end up switching over again to a different platform, you will carry your domain with you. So your SEO is tied to the domain, not necessarily your web pages. Don't quote me on that. Like that's a very basic way of saying it. But just keep in mind what you just kind of described there. It's going to be time consuming and it might not be worth your time redoing it every single year.
Can you have two domains for the same website, like xyz.com and xyz.co?
Yes, you can. And you can just redirect it. Yep.
Would you recommend creating a website by Vista versus Wix?
I'm not familiar with Vista. So I can't answer that. Sorry.
For the least tech savvy guys starting, what's the best option to avoid learning all the details?
Yeah. I'll get into that a little bit later. I'm partial Squarespace because I think it's the easiest to pick up.
Is it true that sharing a server can slow down your website?
Oh, I'm not sure. I haven't heard that.
Okay, that would be running it on your own server, I guess.
It's possible. Yeah, then you would be tied to your own like internet kind of stuff. So I do have quite a bit more to get through. So if we want to save, I see they keep coming up. So
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll try to get as many as we can, but we
Sure.
definitely want to get through the presentation. So we'll come back to the Q&A.
Sure. Okay, great. But great questions. I'm really excited to see everybody's brain going. All right, so yeah, I lost my spot here. All right, so why use a template site? This kind of was some of the questions that were coming up there. And what's the alternative? The alternative is paying a company, a web development company, to build a custom coded site that you don't really ever have access to, and potentially, as that person commented, they could hold it hostage and not let you have it back because they coded it and therefore it's kind of their property. So template sites definitely give you the control. The benefit of using a site is that you don't need to know any code or very minimal code to create a really beautiful site with relative ease. Template sites like Squarespace, Wix, GoDaddy provide pre-designed layouts or templates that allow you to just swap out the content. So you can switch out the photo, edit the text pretty easily. You can drag and drop the elements into the order that you want and rearrange the template however you need. So aside from it's really low maintenance solution, so it's also really secure. They provide, the SSL certificate, so you don't have to worry about getting hacked or dealing with any of that kind of fallout. So again, I'm partial to Squarespace, but you don't need to be. There are many other options out there. If you want to compare, focus on the price and the features that you get. They all provide some version of a free trial and tiered, as we've already discussed. So aside from that, you want to take a look at the template design, the look of it itself. And if you need an e-commerce solution, how much does that add onto the bill, things like that. Plugins, these are the modifications you can add onto a website for more customizations. And that's really what makes Squarespace such a steep learning curve. Because it has 35,000 plugins, that's basically how it's able to customize every single part of your website. These other options, the template sites don't have many plugins, and that's actually kind of positive if you don't really want to deal with that. So a plugin is something that you install on your website, and then you need to, and that's the bit of coding that you might need some help with. Once it's on your website, it's pretty easy to adjust the things, but it's getting it connected to your site that might be require some assistance. So pros and cons of each. It's really, again, going to be on your own personal preference. I like Squarespace because it will scale with you. And while it might be a little confusing to get started on the platform, the clients I've worked with have all had pretty positive experiences. If you can edit a Word document, if you know how to insert an image into a Word document and you know how to wrap text and move it around, you can figure out Squarespace. It's pretty easy. So yeah, just kind of the other thing to consider is like, because they all offer some sort of free trial, start the free trial and see how confusing it is or how easy it is for you to use. And then decide which one is the most easy for you and kind of go from there. Might be a good way to start. Okay, so now that we have some of those basics out of the way, I want to share some examples on each of the platforms so you can see what the end result might look like. First up is GoDaddy. This was a client of mine called Lisa's Body Shop. She is a massage therapist in Northeast Ohio. So her site is on GoDaddy. She pays for the domain and the host there. And these screenshots here are what the site used to look like. If you go to the site now, it's not going to look like that anymore because we just refreshed it. So she pays for the domain and the host, and then initially she made her website. So I think in total she was paying like $275 for the year between the domain and the host. And what motivated her for the redesign was that she built it herself about 5 years ago, and she said she just got tired of looking at it. She needed a new one, but she got too frustrated trying to figure it out herself. You can see that. So this is like a template where she could change this image and then add all of the text here, but it's boring. It's a lot of text that people might not read. They're going to skim through it. And, although the images are relevant, it doesn't really match her brand. It worked to get started. She definitely was able to get quite a lot of use out of it to grow her business, but now she wants to be a little bit more intentional with it. So I worked with her to get the design to better match her brand. She wanted to stay on GoDaddy, so we kept it on GoDaddy. And you can see we got rid of a lot of the blocks, a lot of the text, long, lengthy text, and added a lot more color, a lot more photos to better match her vibe, if you want to call it. So what I mean by templates and blocks and all these things, this is one block within the larger template. So this is a header block. This is another content block where you can switch out this image, switch out your text. This is like a testimonial slider, so you can switch out this copy here. And then this is another block with content that you can update. This is another page. This is her services page that talks about all the individual types of massage services that she offers. And so this is a content block that you're able to switch out the image and update the text here. And then these are buttons that go to other pages. So this is the template. These are the content blocks. And then this is the stuff that you can modify, the photos, images, and colors. So you can see that you can definitely get some really rich visuals and really beautiful website. I will say that it was pretty frustrating even for me, and I kind of know my way around this a little bit. GoDaddy, I found that like the options for the content blocks were pretty limited. They all kind of dealt with just an image on one side and text on the other, and I could swap the orientation of those two things, but that was about it. I couldn't make this text stretch all the way through. There's just things that like might get a little frustrating if you have a really clear vision in your head of what you want your website to look like. But regardless, it's still a really beautiful website, and this was on GoDaddy. So her cost stayed about $275 after she paid my fee to design this template. But now she's able to modify it on her own, so she can, moving forward, her fee will continue to just be $275 to GoDaddy. This next example is on Wix. This is a company called Media77. They are a video production company. They pay about $360 a year to Wix to host the domain, to host the website and pay for the domain through there. They built the website themselves as well. And as I was asking if I could feature them in this presentation, they sent a screenshot from Wix saying how the price to manage the domain was going up. And they were pretty frustrated by that. There was no extra feature they were getting. Wix just decided to increase the cost of the domain by another $5 a year or so. So again, that's just kind of something to keep in mind. Because it's a one-stop solution, these platforms can increase the price tag without really adding too many more features. But anyway, the original website was focused on wedding work because that was primarily their client base, but they wanted to start attracting some more advertising work. So unfortunately, they were having a hard time closing the deal because prospects would only really see the wedding work, and they didn't really trust that the skills could translate. So the client knew they needed a refresh, but they just didn't have time to do it themselves. Although they did make their original site, so they could have if they had the time. So this redesign we completed together, and you can see weddings are still mentioned, but it's not really the primary focus anymore. And this is an option where all of these are YouTube URLs pulled to the website, so it's not actually being hosted. So the person that asked about that, you can definitely do that through Wix. Wix has a lot more template options you can pick from, but it's not, from my experience and what I've heard from clients, it's not super intuitive. For example, they kind of have like menus hidden within menus, and so if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be kind of difficult to find it. But it's a nice solution, and you can see again, we were able to come up with a really beautiful site for them as well. The next one I want to talk about is a client who went from a really niche industry platform provider, and they wanted to move over to Squarespace. So you can see she was paying $117 a month for her website, and that was because it was one of these therapy niche industry website builders that was really just upselling her on this appointment scheduling feature that she didn't even use. She wasn't even using it and was still having to pay that much money. So she made this website herself about 20 years ago and was in desperate need of an update. But again, she just didn't really have time or knowledge to do it herself. And she also just really was desperate to reduce her price tag. So our first goal was to get that monthly fee lower. She did not need to be spending that much money. And so by switching over to Squarespace, we got the monthly fee down to $23 a month. And so I was able to just kind of like set up a very dummy template, just kind of put in her colors and her fonts, and then she was able to make this herself, put in the content blocks again, switching out the images, putting in the text here, and she's able to maintain the site, and she's super happy with it. So I just gave her a couple of pointers, and she's really confident to update it on her own. So this last one I'm actually going to talk about is a client that started on Squarespace and then actually moved over to WordPress. So their domain was managed by a third party, and we connected it to Squarespace to kind of make sure that cost stayed lower. They needed a really quick website solution because they are a franchise owner, and they were really frustrated with the corporate solution because on the corporate website, they were one page within this nationwide website, and they needed the ability to share more content. So they went ahead and just made a Squarespace website for cheap to test the waters to see if like corporate would be okay with that. And it turns out that they were fully in support of it. And so once they got that go ahead, they were able to pretty easily cancel Squarespace and move over to WordPress. And the reason they did that was because they hit the capacity that Squarespace could provide pretty quickly. For example, they knew they wanted a mortgage calculator. They knew they wanted some sort of local attractions map. They knew they wanted really custom features that Squarespace couldn't really provide, and they needed WordPress and those plugins to do these extra components. So that did make their price tag go up a little bit more, but that was worth it. It's really helped their target audience and communicating the information. So it was worth it. So to recap this section here, each template builder site starts with offers a free trial. So sign up to see which one is easiest for you to use. That might be a good way to get started. Something is better than nothing. What I mean by that is, every one of those clients that I mentioned started their website on their own, and it worked for them for a handful of years. And so you just kind of need some kind of online presence, and you can always update it later on. It's a working document. That's what these kind of websites are meant for. And also just kind of the cheapest option isn't always the right one. So I can kind of open it up again for some questions here. Let me see if I can. Here we go.
Okey-doke. Do you provide website evaluations?
I do actually have a slide about that later on, so I'll
Okay.
answer that later.
What are the time sinks if using Elementor Pro?
That is a little trying to see how I can answer that. I'm happy to give you one-on-one if you want to send me an email, because I use Elementor, so I can definitely chat with you about that specifically. That might be best.
If you decide to change the name later, can you do it?
The domain, you'd have to purchase a new one. If it's just like your website title, you can definitely change that easy. But if changing your name means that you need a different domain, then you'd have to pay for a new domain.
James Corrales said he found someone who's very good on Fiverr, and it was $200 for multi-pages developed in WordPress.
There you go.
Okay. What are your thoughts about using Canva to design and host website?
Yeah, I've never used Canva, but I mean, I've never used Canva for website work, but I use it for social media posts and things like that. If that's what works for you, then that's a great solution. Because it's trying to present itself as one of those one-stop solutions, because website wasn't their first primary focus, you might run into some limitations.
Which hosts are easiest to set up a company email domain address?
So I know they probably all offer them. I just know for sure that Squarespace allows you to purchase a Google workspace, whatever, which allows and that gives you the company business email. And I think if you purchase that through them, then they give you the first year free. I'm pretty sure that all of the options allow you to connect it pretty easily. I just know for sure Squarespace allows you to purchase it through them as well.
There's a comment that Vista is through Vistaprint.
Interesting. I did not know Vista did websites.
Can you keep your domain name if you change web hosting companies?
Yep, absolutely. You would just have to transfer it from the new place that you're going to. It's not hard.
Let's see. This question is about, is it better to use a
I see. So you're saying it's the Gloss Genius?
Okay. Let me just read it. It's kind of massage therapist does some telehealth mentorship. Wants to brand and do products as well. When purchasing the use of the scheduling, each of them offer websites with them, but they become like
Yeah, I'm guessing it's
gloss something other.com. Is it better to use their websites or to create one and use plugins?
yeah, that's so I'm guessing my guess, and this could be incorrect from your question, but so the alternative would be rhonda.com, and instead you're getting rhonda.glosswhatever.com. That just makes your domain longer, which means that people are going to have to type more in, and it would be better to have it be shorter. Yeah, that's another question. Email me and we can talk about that.
Did Lisa's Body Shop use her own photos or are they stock?
I actually took those photos for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you didn't have to pay, she didn't have to pay a license. Can you recommend the best way to optimize images so my page loads quickly and images fit where I want them?
That's a good question. You might be able to do with Canva, with their freer subscriptions. I know you can do that through Photoshop. If you just type in image optimization, there might even be some online. I'm not familiar with them off the top of my head, but I'm sure you can probably upload your image and optimize it for web.
Which is the best platform to use for SEO and be found?
They all, they all want to be really good at that. So they all, Squarespace, and I know Wix offers like an SEO wizard that actually helps you, like it's a checklist to make sure you've got everything accomplished through SEO. SEO is one of those things that just kind of takes time to build up. And also like WordPress, you would have to add a plugin to get the SEO. It's getting a little too technical. I'm trying to stay away from a little bit too much of that, but the short answer is they all do pretty good. The SEO, I'm sorry, the SEO is more tied to the content you have on your site, not necessarily the host itself, if that makes more sense.
I think this one is asking, what do you get when you, for the paid version, instead of using the free version of Elementor, I think.
Oh, I didn't know there was a free version of Elementor, so I can't answer that.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, I thought it was only paid.
okay.
You want to get back to the slides here?
Yeah, we can, sure.
Okay, yeah, I've got another chunk of time at the end here too for another checkpoint. But great questions. I'm really excited with how active that is. Let me just make sure I'm on the right spot here. Okay, so now that you have the technical side-ish down to some extent, or at least I know your brain is thinking enough about how to do the technical side, and you've seen what the platforms can provide, let's dig into the things that you need to get together to actually build this beautiful website. So this section will talk about what you need to get started, and we'll review some really basic design principles. So what you need to get started, a logo is good, but you don't necessarily have to have a logo. Colors, again, are good to have, but also all of these template builder sites like Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy, they have a lot of preset options. So if you don't necessarily know your specific brand colors yet, you can pick one of their presets. They all come really beautifully packaged presets there for you to pick from. You're also going to need some text and content. That is not something that the template builder provides. Obviously, it's your website, so you need to provide your about me section and your services, for example. You need images and visuals because we're all really visual people. People spend about 54 seconds on a website to skim, so visuals help kind of tell that story in fewer words. You need your domain, so you can connect your website so people can find your website, and then understanding your target audience a little bit. And by that, I mean, knowing their pain point and how your service is solving their need. So we're going to talk specifically about the text and content because these template builder sites really take care of a lot of the design elements themselves. Like, you don't necessarily need to know your fonts and you don't need to know your colors. You can pick some of those if you don't know that right off the bat. So we're going to focus a little bit more on the text and content here. So to that end, you need a clear offer or a headline. This is the first thing that your visitors will see at the very top of your page. It's a clear value proposition, and your headline needs to be above the fold, and I'll talk about what that means in a second. A call to action. We don't act unless we're directed to. So your website needs to have clear buttons that tell people what to do next. So call now, download this, click here, things like that, get started. Those all direct people what to do and where to go. Images of success, so stock images that allow the visitor to see a vision of a successful future. You need to include lots of images that show how their life will be better after using your product or service. So what I mean by that, if you are a dentist, have lots of images of people with beautiful smiles and beautiful teeth. That helps people understand how you're going to help them become that as well. And then bite-size and really concise information. Most web searches happen on mobile now at this point, so people skim. They're not looking for long descriptions. The few references, examples I had before was that long list of text that people just weren't really reading. So you really need to make sure it's short and sweet. And again, people spend 54 seconds, which is not a lot of time skimming a website. So you need to make sure that who you are, what you do, and how to contact you. You need to make sure those 3 pieces of information are easy to find in 54 seconds. So this is all that same information, but just kind of in a visual format. So this is your CTA as a call to action. So get started or learn more. Your clear offer, this is what that is. We help you. Of course, it's really generic. I hope you have something better than that. Here we go. And then above the fold, this refers to like newspapers when they're folded. You want the headline to be at the very top of your page. And then images of success, this is where those would go with concise information. So an image and then just a title of what that service is, and then a few bullet points. And if they want to know more, maybe they could click on that button to get to a page that talks about that more specifically. Thanks to template sites, you don't need to be a design expert to pull together a really beautiful site, but I do want to cover just some basics here. Remember that less is more. Use your website as a way to pique somebody's interest. You don't need to tell them everything all at once. Again, they're going to skim. And so it's really not a lot of time to get your message across. Of course, then once you've piqued their interest, they're going to dig a little bit deeper. So you really just need to make sure that the most important pieces are easy to find, and you can do that through bright colors or images that kind of attract the eye in certain ways. So really think about how someone's going to navigate through your website. If you shut your eyes and you open it, what's the very first thing you want to be read? And then what's the secondary thing? Kind of think about your website as you're building it that way. And ultimately what you need to do is make your contact information really easy to find. The contact form button, contact us, any of that kind of page content, you really need to make it pretty easy to find. So this is another example really quickly. This was a homepage of a client of mine from a few years ago. They built their website using a free platform. I can't remember which. It might have been GoDaddy's free platform, free option, but I can't remember. So on a positive side, they do use really bright colors. The elements are not cluttered, it's in columns, so it's easy to know that like all of this content relates to services, all of this is about their mission, all of this content relates to resources. But as you can see, this was supposed to be a header gallery and the image was broken, so it didn't appear. This, if you continue to scroll down, was just tons and tons of white space with nothing else. And then at the very, very bottom would be the footer. So this was just kind of dead space. These looked like buttons, but they weren't. So that kind of frustrated people. If you were to go up to these, this is a navigation menu. If you were to drop down these, there was duplicate pages. All of these things kind of frustrated the user experience. And so people aren't going to take the time to figure out what you're trying to say. They're going to bounce and go find a competitor. This was another one of the pages. Again, you can see lots and lots of text. It would have maybe helped if we had some bullet points here. And again, images are broken. It just kind of looks sloppier than it needs to be. And ultimately their contact us page was buried. There isn't even a button up here to know where to go. And so again, people are not going to take the time to figure out what you're trying to say. So we redesigned the website, and you can see this is the headline up here, pull up a seat, let's work together for your child. So that tells you that this is some sort of service for children. The image back here shows an adult working with a child, finding community support. So it's something to do with supporting. You have get started in a few different spots. So you have the call to actions. Then as you go down the page, it gives you a little bit more information. You understand that this is a service for autism, for children to grow And then these are the bite-sized descriptions with icons of the services that they provide. So it's taking all that same information, but just organizing it in a way that you can actually read and want to read. So again, to recap here, your offer should clearly identify how your services solves a customer's pain point. Template sites take care of a lot of the design options. If you don't know colors right off the bat, or if you don't know your fonts right off the bat, they have presets that you can pick, and that just kind of helps you get up and running a lot faster. And then of course, if you do know your colors, you can always add those in whenever you're ready. So really, as you start building up your website, focus on the content that's going to be really relevant and concise. Revise, proofread, and relax. Remember that although this website is live, it's a working document. You can always make changes. It's not set in stone. It's not going to go viral. Just kind of take your time with it. And it's most important to proofread to make sure you don't have any typos there. And also, if you do end up doing a free trial just to kind of test some things out, prepare your content beforehand, because that 7 or 12 days goes by really fast. So you don't want to run out of time there. I think this is another chunk of time where we have some questions here.
All right, let's see. Arminda said she heard WordPress is good for having calculators. I'm planning to have a calculator for her financial coaching business and Excel templates. In my case, what do you recommend me to use, Squarespace or WordPress?
Yeah, WordPress definitely will allow you to have that solution. Squarespace, you probably would need a little bit of coding knowledge to connect that. Off the top of my head, I don't really know if Squarespace has an option to make a calculator. So WordPress is probably the best bet.
If I bought a domain on Wix, can I use that to build something on Squarespace without technical knowledge about connecting?
Yeah, so Squarespace and Wix are competitors, so you can't purchase your domain through Wix and then build your site on Squarespace. They're probably not going to let you do that. Because GoDaddy is primarily a domain place where you can purchase your domain, you can purchase it through GoDaddy and connect it to Squarespace. It's not difficult. There's a wizard that walks you through the steps of what to do.
What are your thoughts on Bluehost?
I've never heard of it. Sorry.
Is there a book for WordPress to help you create new parts on your site?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm sure there is. I'm not familiar with it though.
Yes, that one already. With WordPress themes, can you make clear how something popular like rainforest themes compare to Astra or Astra Pro, or if one uses Beaver Builder or Elementor Pro, those include lots of themes that would render it unnecessary to use Astra or Astra Pro.
So that's getting into a lot of development stuff that it's actually beyond my knowledge skill set. I have used Astra Pro before. So Astra and Elementor, I haven't heard the other ones that you mentioned. That is just sort of the theme that you can then add a whole bunch of plugins to. This is really getting more into development, which is kind of beyond what this beginner thing is. So if it's the same person asking the Elementor Pro questions, please email me. I'm happy to direct you to the right people who can answer your questions.
What platform do you recommend for e-commerce online store?
Yeah, Squarespace has e-commerce, Wix has e-commerce. I have not used Shopify yet, but I know it's a pretty common one. Yeah, they all offer some sort of, if you build your site on Squarespace and you add the e-commerce, the reason why it's a higher tier is because you have to pay extra security because people are giving your credit card information, but otherwise it's the same. It's pretty easy to use.
If you use an image from Google Images, do you need to pay a license?
I've never used, oh, you just mean like a Google search. Yeah, I wouldn't do it that way. I've got some resource. The next section tells you where to find images, so I'll answer that later.
Is there a way to narrow a website to advertise it only in one state?
It's an interesting question. You can through Google Analytics, but again, that's getting more into development stuff, so I'm gonna refrain from answering that.
How easy is it to use geometric designs in your website, a pyramid or something he's interested in?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What I recommend is like signing up for any of like Wix or Squarespace, any of those, and look at the templates options that they have, the designs, themes that they have for you, and see if any kind of pique your interest. You can always modify it from there, but I have seen some geometric options. If you're asking that, the other option would be like uploading images that are the geometric patterns that you might want to go for, but it shouldn't be too difficult.
Can you start building the website before getting a domain?
Yes, the domain is like the last thing you do. You connect the domain at the very end before you launch your website.
This is an SEO question. How do you get more hits on your site? Can you use certain words over and over?
Yeah, I don't talk too much about SEO because it's a little too technical in this presentation. Yeah, I mean, SEO is one of those things that you have to just kind of, it takes time to build up. It's not like a flip of the switch. It's not a setting. You can use keywords, but you have to avoid keyword loading them. It's a little too technical than I am comfortable getting into right now.
All right. Apparently I didn't read this question correctly. Other than the website builder cost like Elementor Pro, are the customizations of total cost mainly the plugins that people would be best to pay for as
I
opposed
see.
to
Okay,
selling the free version?
I see what you're saying. Okay, so plugins, some of them are free, some of them you do pay for. So the plugins that are free, you just have to I use a lot of free plugins on my website. I also use a lot of paid ones. WordPress is a lot of open source, which means anybody can kind of create a plugin that you can then use on your website. But because you have companies building plugins as well as just individual people who like coding and that kind of stuff, they might decide to stop updating that plugin, and therefore your site, you might run into some issues down the line when you need to update, and security issues. It's always better to pay for the plugin because usually that means you have enhanced security and you don't have to worry about getting hacked.
How ThemeForest compares to Astra Pro in terms of breadth, depth, and overall quality, and advantages and disadvantages?
I don't know ThemeForest. Yeah, I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
It's done. Last one, I have a website sitting dormant for over 2 years that I've been paying SiteGround monthly hosting for. I noticed 150 total page views, and many of the links accessed were the back-end site URLs. Is the free version of WordFence sufficient, or would paying the $160 be necessary for it to find anything malicious laying dormant in the background since I bought the site and started hosting it 2 years back?
Interesting. So I'm guessing that analytics that it's tracking might actually be your own activity. If you mean you're not even logging in, then yeah, that might be. I can't imagine it would be some sort of malicious. But if it's tracking like back end stuff, that's probably your own activity as you're making edits to the site.
Yeah, that'll work for now.
Okay. All right, this is the last chunk of time. There's a last chunk of slides. This is really getting into the questions that people were asking about where to find the content. So this is great. I'm very happy that you're asking those questions here. So I just want to provide some free options for you here. Pixels.com is a really great place to find royalty-free stock images. You can download them, and then it gives you like the person's name that you have to credit somewhere on your website, but it's free to use as long as you provide that credit. FreePic and then Flat Icon, these are other sites that allow you to find little graphic elements. If you don't necessarily want photos on your website, but you want more graphic elements, you can download them there for free as well. Hemingway Editor is another really great free tool I use a lot. There's a paid version, but I use the free one. It helps you edit your content for an appropriate audience. So you just copy and paste. It's basically like a word editor. So you copy and paste it here, and then it tells you the grade level that your content is written at. You want to kind of keep it around a 6th grade reading level, again, because we skim. And so if you copy and paste it in here and you see that you're at a 14th grade reading level, you might want to work to make that a little bit easier to read. Then what it does is that this editor will point out the sentences that are really difficult to read, ones that are kind of difficult to read, and kind of offer some alternatives. It doesn't provide the solution for you. You still have to go in and modify it a little bit, but especially if you're using ChatGPT to write your content, copy and paste it into here, because you will see that you very quickly will see that ChatGPT makes long meandering sentences that are kind of nonsense. So it kind of helps you iterate and revise a lot faster. Digging deeper a little bit, some people have had questions about SEO. I didn't talk too much about this, it's a little bit beyond the scope of this basic intro. But it is really important to start the next thing once you get your website done, to start looking at website traffic and data and understanding where the traffic is coming from, because you can use all that information to build out your SEO strategy. You might want to think about blog content, adding that kind of content, because again, that will help with your SEO. You can also add things on your website to capture emails, so people can sign up for a newsletter, but that allows you to capture their email and then follow up with them afterwards. Just look at my notes here. So hopefully this information was helpful to you. I do have a lot of free blogs on my website and lots of workbooks that you can download that walk you through building a website on Squarespace, again, because that's the one I'm partial to. If you're interested in that, these are all free to download here. But beyond blogs associated specifically to building websites, I also have a lot of other content to build out, marketing strategies and all the different pieces that you might need for that. I do also have an assessment tool on my website, so you answer a couple of questions and it gives you some actionable steps on how to improve your website. So again, that's a free tool on my website you can use. I do offer a lot of free workshops and personalized trainings. The trainings, I'm not officially a SCORE mentor, so my trainings aren't free in the way that they are, but I do offer a lot of free in-person workshops and webinars like this. So the next workshop I have coming up is in person in Ohio, and that'll talk about starting a marketing starter kit. And then in April, I'm co-hosting one in Texas with a good friend of mine. And this one is specific to the healthcare field. So we'll talk about how to balance your own personal needs with the needs of the market. I try to give workshops about once a month. So if you'd like to stay up to date, shoot me an email and I can get you on my newsletter list so you can know when the next one's coming up. And then lastly, I have set aside some time next week on January 16th if anyone wants to schedule a free 30-minute chat to discuss your website project or larger marketing goals. I'm happy to provide some free advice. So you can either scan this code or click on this link. And so with that, that's the end of my slides. I'll leave this one up if anybody wants to sign up and I can answer any other questions.
Click the button. Looks like we only have one.
Great.
You hit all the rest. That was great. Regarding content above the fold, much smaller above the fold on mobile versions, would you choose images or words?
Yeah, so your website will need words, and you can also include an image. Every website builder will allow you to see what your website looks like on mobile as well as on desktop as you're building it on the desktop. So it's always really good practice to flip between the two modes so that you can see how your content is formatting. And you can make individual changes just to mobile view so that it looks good there as well as looking good on desktop. So to answer your question, you would need both words and images.
Is there any free website hosting?
Yeah. I don't know. There might be, but it's going to be pretty limited. Google Sites, no, I think you have to pay for that. I don't think so.
What about the website from Google?
Google Sites?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. I know I had a client that started on Google Sites, but and that might have come free because of her Google Workspace subscription. So the
Yeah,
site used to be, but
I
she,
think that came up in something along the way about uh, setting up a Google My Business, and you could create a website on Google to connect to
oh,
that, but it was a very elementary set.
yes, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, any of those free options are probably gonna be so limited that I don't know if it's really worth the effort. You know, compared free versus like $12 a month, it might be worth to
Right.
just pay
The
12
the
bucks.
return on investment is
Yeah,
probably good.
right.
Um, I believe that is everything. There is another, or maybe I've answered this, but we are recording. Nicole's going to send me her slides, and then I will send those out by email along with a link to that recording. KJ says strikingly is free.
Okay, yeah, that's one I have not heard of.
Um, this is kind of, okay. I have grassroots nonprofit and I painfully got my WordPress site up. However, I haven't mastered using WordPress and need step-by-step instruction. Is that available anywhere?
I mean, not for free. There's definitely lots of developers that will train, but you're probably gonna have to pay them to train you. There's probably YouTube videos, but it's gonna be so specific. And again, it kind of gets to like the cost benefit of your own time. It might be worth it to just pay for a developer to get you a nice template that then you can modify yourself.
Okay, I believe that's all the questions. So unless there is anything else, I see a bunch of thank yous coming through and we appreciate you presenting, Nicole. And
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yep.
hope everyone has a good rest of the day and stay warm. And sorry about the California fires again.
Yeah.
Wish you
Scary.
all the best. So take care and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill.